Hello, Muse. It is me. It is I. It is we. It is they. It is he. It is she. It is whoever. It is me. In the end, it is me. And regardless of what you call me, I have something that I think is pretty exciting to talk about. Exciting because it was something that it was a happy accident. I kind of discovered something about my process. When I ask every writer what their process is, they inevitably say one of two things. They say they are either a pantser or a plotter. What is the difference? Well, a pantser is someone who writes by the seat of their pants. They don't use an outline. They just start writing and see where things take them. Now, for the longest time, that's what I said I am. Although I always call it writing without a net, because I find that's a little bit more descriptive. On top of which, to me, being a pantser is someone who, especially back in the 80s, would pull down the pants of some unknowing victim in the middle of public, and there they were, without their pants. Well, their pants were at their ankles, but anyway. So the other is a plotter. A plotter is someone who plots out an outline of a book before they start writing, so they know exactly where the book is going to go, and they follow that outline religiously. So pantsers and plotters. Which are you? Now, I'm going to throw a bit of a wrench into those works, because recently I discovered that my process is actually something altogether different. Yeah, slightly. I am now what I call a puzzler. So there's pantsers, plotters, and puzzlers. What is a puzzler? Well, this whole idea came about, the whole idea of puzzlering came about because of the process that I went through writing Defying Gravity. Let me explain. The idea for writing for Defying Gravity came about from a dream. So many months ago, many moons ago, in a far off place, lived a handsome prince. I can't remember the rest of that, but that's the beginning of Princess and the Pea. I don't remember the name of it, the musical. I was in it a long time ago. I played King Sextimus. Anyway, a long time ago when I came up with the idea of Defying Gravity, I didn't come up with the idea. I had a dream, and I woke up that morning, and I knew that that dream had to become a book. It was that powerful. So I opened up my to-be-written file, and I wrote a line or two, sentence or two about that dream that made sure that I would remember what it was about. And I closed the file and I went about my business because I had two other books I had to write. So I wrote Hopetown and Fear. However, in the back of my mind, because that dream was so powerful and I so badly wanted to write this book, it was churning and burning back there. Or maybe it was back there. I think that's the spot right there. Or maybe it's up here. Maybe in my frontal lobe, one of those babies. Anyway, so in the back of my mind, I was constantly thinking about Defying Gravity, because I even knew what the title was way back then. And so I was sort of putting the pieces together of what this book was going to be. Okay, so I had the idea. I pretty much knew what this book was before I started writing it. And I got Hopetown and Fear out of the way, and then it was time to start finally writing Defying Gravity. I hadn't been so excited about starting a book in a long time. So I sat down, and I typed out that first sentence. And as soon as I typed out that first sentence, I knew it was going to change. Because originally, what I was going to do was I was going to invent a musical that the main character was going to experience, and all of this was going to happen from within the confines of that musical. Well, as soon as I wrote that first sentence, I was like, wait a second. Why don't I draw from my own past? Why don't I use the one show that is in my recent memory that profoundly affected me? Because in using that, I would be able to draw from parts of my life that I experienced, and something that people would be able to latch onto and really understand. So I decided the show that was going to be a part of this was Cabaret, and the main character was going to be playing the MC. Fancy that? That's what happened with me. So immediately, all of a sudden, I had all of this other stuff to draw from. Things that were a part of reality to pull into this piece of fiction. So instead of me being a pantser and just kind of writing at the seat of my pants, yes, I was still doing that with the plot of the book, but I was also having to pull in other bits and pieces of truth. And not only that, not only was I having to use my past experience, I was also having to dive into a realm, and I had to know. I had to fully understand and grasp what it was like to be in that realm. And then pull from other parts of my life. So what happened was I had taken this plot for this book, mixed in a bunch of other things, taken all of these pieces and dropped them on a table and said, now I have to put them all together. I had to know what the driving force behind Cabaret was. I had to know what it was like to be in the realm of professional theater. And then there were other layers that got added on as I went along. There was Nazi Germany. And there was choreography. And there was music. And there was directing. And there was romance. And there was New York. And there were all of these layers that just started building on top of one another to come together to form this cohesive whole. So what I was doing effectively was I took this gigantic puzzle, a box of puzzle pieces, and dumped them on a table, and I said, I have to put this puzzle together. Now, do I want to start on the borders? Right? Or do I want to find, like, in this wonderful little puzzle, maybe it was a picture of a farm and there was a little goat and a bunny rabbit in a field in the sky and a barn, and maybe I saw the little goat's head in a piece, and I said, oh, I'm going to start there. And I'm going to find all the pieces that make up this goat, this cute little goat, and I'm going to put the goat together. And now that I've got the goat together, oh, over here, I see the bunny rabbit's ear. I'm going to put the bunny rabbit together. And now I've got the goat and the bunny rabbit. And now I've got to figure out where to go from there. And I've got to start putting these pieces together. And there's a big open blue sky, and there's just a bunch of big blue pieces. So I don't have a picture to go from. I just have the edges of the puzzle pieces that I have to figure out which ones fit together. And eventually, I have to hope that I put this puzzle together and I use all of the pieces and it makes this beautiful picture. And I couldn't have done that just by pantsing, and I couldn't have done that just by plotting, because there are too many elements that came together to form this book. So I looked back at this process and I said, I'm a puzzler. And then I started looking back at all of my other books. And I realized that that's the style that's my process with every one of those books, with the exception of the really early on ones. But even those early on books, and even those books where I thought I was just a pantser, Here's what happens with those books. So I'd be writing along, making up all this stuff and sending all these characters off into these crazy to-dos and shenanigans and shindigs and goings on. And then I'd go, wait a second. I have a great idea for something to happen later on. So I'd go down to the bottom of the file and I'd write a note. And then I would go back and I would start writing again under the plot and blah, blah, blah. And go, oh, wait, I have to remember this one thing. I'd go back down, write a note. Next thing I know, I had a page of notes at the bottom of this file and I would have to constantly refer to. And I've done that for years. Now, we go back in time when I was a plotter, and how I would work was I would write a sentence to describe what each paragraph was. And then once I got them all done, once I knew that I had a sentence for each paragraph and those sentences can't combine together to create a complete plot, I would go back and I would turn each sentence into a paragraph. Now I have fleshed out that sentence into something a little bit more detailed. And then I would go back, once I had all those done, then I would start writing the book. And then all I had to do was flesh out the paragraph to turn it into a chapter. Now, where it gets complicated is I would be writing along, I'd be writing that first chapter, trying to adhere to that paragraph, and I go, wait a second, what if I did this instead? And then I would do that, and then I'd have to go back and look at my outline, and I have to readjust everything. So even early on, I was a plotter who was also a pantser. So regardless of which method I choose, I wind up adding on the other element to create something new, hence puzzler. And personally, I just think puzzler is a little bit more, I don't know, cool. It's a little bit more artistic. I'm not patting myself on the back or anything. I just think that being a puzzler is more apropos to what we do as writers, because we puzzle all of this stuff out. We puzzle out the plot, we puzzle out the characters, we puzzle out the subplots and the secondary characters. We puzzle out everything. And to try to religiously adhere to either being a pantser or a plotter, you're missing out on all that stuff in between. And you're missing out on those areas where those two types of processes combine together to make something completely more completely more adept at helping you to get your story written. So, what I think you should do as a writer is really step back and go, what is my process? When I say that I'm a pantser, am I really 100% a pantser? Or do I tend to take notes at the bottom of this and then put it all together in the end? Or if you're a plotter, do you write out that outline and strictly adhere to that? Or do you veer off a little bit and then adjust as you go along? I bet that regardless of what style you are, you do not religiously adhere to it. And you are, as I am, a puzzler. Kind of exciting, isn't it? To think, oh my gosh, I've been wrong about my process all along, and this is what I am. It's really exciting when that happens. So, this book, Defying Gravity, has done so much for me, not just as a writer, but as a person. It touched me. It touched me and it changed me, just like Cabaret did. So, this is one of those, I believe, one of those defining books on numerous levels. Anyway, are you a plotter, a pantser, or a puzzler? Doesn't matter what you are, Muse, because in the end, you, my friend, are awesome.